You ever wonder about the family tree of the food on your plate? I'm not just talking about where it was grown, but where its actual DNA, its core instructions, came from. Well, today, we're going to trace the genetic history behind one of the world's most important foods in a country where it means absolutely everything. Well, for a start, it takes a whole lot of rice. But not just any rice. It takes rice that can thrive, that can produce huge yields, and that can stand up to all the local challenges. And this isn't just some abstract agricultural question. For a nation like Bangladesh, it's the fundamental question of survival and progress. Okay, let's dive right in. In this explainer, first up, we're going to talk about why rice is just so critical there. Then we'll meet the key players in a partnership that literally changed a nation's harvest. We'll break down the surprisingly simple science behind creating a new seed, look at a few real-world examples, and then, finally, we'll get to see the massive impact of this whole collaboration. So, let's start here. In Bangladesh, rice isn't just another food. It's the bedrock, the absolute foundation of their entire food system. And here's the thing you gotta understand. Food security isn't just about making sure people don't go hungry. It's the foundation for everything else. I mean, when a nation can reliably feed itself, that's what creates the stability for kids to go to school, for businesses to grow, for communities to truly thrive. It is the absolute first step on the path to progress. Now, to take on a challenge this huge, Bangladesh didn't have to go it alone. This whole story is really about a powerful partnership between the nation's own scientists and a really unique global institution. This slide really gets to the heart of it. So look, on one side, you've got this immense challenge facing Bangladesh. And on the other, you have the International Race Research Institute, or IRRI, which has this incredible resource, what's basically a massive global library of race genetics, plus all the expertise you need to unlock its potential. The whole goal was to connect that resource to the challenge and find the right genetic building blocks to build a better rice for Bangladesh. Okay, so how does this actually work, right? How do you combine the traits of two totally different rice plants? You might be imagining some super complicated lab procedure, but honestly, it's more like following a surprisingly simple recipe. And the main ingredient in this recipe is something called germplasm. Just think of it like the ultimate seed bank or a genetic library for rice. And each sample in that library, it's like its own little instruction manual, holding all the code for things like how tall the plant will grow, or if it can resist floods, or how much grain it will produce. The whole process, really, it just boils down to this basic formula. I mean, it's just like us, right? A new rice plant gets half of its genetic code from one parent and half from the other. So if you can choose the parents, you can pretty much choose the traits of the new plant. So to actually track IRRI's impact in the story, we can use this super simple model. Let's just assign a value. We'll say any pure IRRI developed parent is a 1, and any local Bangladeshi variety is a 0. When you cross them, the offspring gets half of each. So half of 1 plus half of 0 equals 0.5. That means the new variety has a 50% genetic contribution from IRRI's library. Simple as that. All right, let's take that formula and put it to the test. Let's see how it works in the real world with 3 rice varieties that have played a huge role in feeding Bangladesh. First up, we've got BR1, also known as Chandina, and this one is maybe the most direct kind of collaboration you can get. So for BR1, the contribution is a full 100%. And why is that? Well, because this variety wasn't even bred in Bangladesh. It was an elite line developed entirely at IRRI's headquarters that just so happened to be a perfect fit for the local conditions. It was a straight-up technology transfer, making its genetic contribution from IRRI total. Okay, next up, BR3, or Biblab. And this is a more classic example of a partnership. It was made by crossing an IRRI parent, called IR506-1331, with a really well-loved local Bangladeshi variety called Latashile. And just like we talked about, our formula gives us a clean 50% IRI contribution, half from that high-yield IRI parent and half from the locally adapted Latashile. It's the perfect blend, right? You get global innovation mixed with that tough local resilience. All right, now for our last case study, and this one's a little more interesting, the super popular BRIDH29. The cool thing here is that one of its parents already had some IRRI genes. Okay, so this is where that family tree analogy really starts to make sense. So check this out. One parent, BG92, was already a 50-50 cross. The other parent was a pure 100% IRI line. So what happens when you cross them? You take half of that 50%, that's 25%, and you add it to half of the 100%, that's 50%. and boom, you get a new variety that's 75% IRI. This is awesome because it shows how breeders can stock these desirable traits generation after generation. So there you have it, the three main pathways side by side. You've got the 100% direct release, the 50% first-generation cross, and the 75% multi-generational cross. These really show the different strategies that were used over the years to get the best possible genes into the hands of farmers. Okay, so that's how it works for individual plants. But what happens when you zoom out? What happens when you apply the same analysis to all the modern rice varieties developed in Bangladesh over decades? Let's pull back and look at the whole harvest, the big picture. Whoa. When you look at this chart, the scale of the impact is it's undeniable. This isn't just about a few hit varieties. Out of more than 100 modern rice varieties developed in Bangladesh, a staggering 81% of them have at least a 50% genetic contribution from IRI. Basically, what that means is the vast majority of modern rice being grown there today has its genetic roots in this global partnership. So, what this all boils down to is pretty incredible. The family tree of an entire nation's food supply is a story of global cooperation. It means that when a farmer in Bangladesh plants a modern rice seed today, they are planting a piece of history, a grain whose ancestry connects their field all the way back to a global library of knowledge. You know, this whole story is just such a powerful testament to what's possible when we work together on our biggest challenges. And it really leaves us with a huge question for our own future. As we face new pressures on our global food supply, what is the next great collaboration that will feed the world?